Hello all, I'm Sai and you're watching The Book Dragon. In today's video, I'm bringing to you my most disappointing reads from 2020. I should say that 2020 as a whole was a really great year for me in terms of reading compared to all the other years before that one, and I also ended up reading a lot more books, over 200 books in just a year. It was very much fulfilling in that way. And also, while I read a lot of books, I am prone to being disappointed to at least a few books, right? So these are the top 7 books which disappointed me in some way or the other in 2020. So without any further ado, let's get into the video. The first one in the list is Paper Towns by John Green. I read this one all the way back in January 2020, and one of the main reasons why I didn't like this book was that I had read 3 John Green books before this one. The first one was Turtles All the Way Down, which was very much relatable for me, so I just loved the entire experience of reading that book. The next one is his most famous, which is The Fault in Our Stars. It's almost a modern classic if you ask me, and I just love that book. The third one was Looking for Alaska, which is a dark book, heavy book, which explores a lot of themes. It was also his debut. It was very well done if you ask me. The voices were so raw. It was so pungent in many ways. It was dark and delicious. I just enjoyed reading it the whole time. With all those high expectations, I picked this one up, Paper Towns, this year, and I didn't think that I would be this much disappointed with this book, because it is like a very contemporary book. It takes place just within a small town. It involves teenagers from high school, so just like any other YA book. But the thing which I expected the most was the characters fleshing out that John Green does very well in his books, which just makes them sound so real. But in this one, I should say none of the characters sounded real at all for me. Okay. Also, the friendships that John Green writes are also one of my most favorite things in his books. In this one, even those friendships didn't seem that much concrete to me. Okay, just felt like putting 3 people who are different together in order to just show that they are different people who are friends. It just felt for me in that way, and I did not enjoy at all reading this one, and it was a major disappointment for me. One of the main reasons which I didn't like at all was that the book was dragged along a lot for like the second half, and towards the end it just felt like it was not at all worth. Okay, it was not at all worth reading these 300 pages. It was personally so for me, but I do know certain people who just love this book and adore it, but I didn't like it much, and I rated this one 3 stars. The next one in the list is The Sellout by Paul Beatty. I read this one in February of 2020, and I picked this book up mainly because it is a Man Booker Prize winner. I think it's from 2013 or something. I don't remember the perfect year. 2011, 12 or 17 somewhere. Okay, it was a really recent release when it comes to reading backdated books. One of the main reasons why I didn't like this book was that the voices of the characters and the writing of the author were awesome. Okay, it was very satire. Okay, I was like smiling a lot of times while reading this book. But one thing which I didn't like at all was the language that was used. Okay, it was so foul in many ways. I could understand that in order to convey the original tone of the characters, those words needed to be used. But I didn't feel that it was that much necessary. You could have toned it down a bit and delivered the same experience for the reader, and you could have delivered your issue which you're trying to convey to the readers in a proper way. I have read some other books like that which I have enjoyed before. This didn't live up to the standards if you ask me personally, and I was like majorly disappointed in this one. I do have certain preferences when it comes to reading books, and language is one of the main things. I'm okay with bad words and curses being used here and there often, but while it just feels like each and every dialogue has a cuss word, it doesn't mesh up with me at all. That's one of the main reasons I have another famous book which I'll be talking about last in the video. But this one didn't live up to the expectations that I had in my mind. It might be due to the high expectations that I set in my mind as well, but I do think that objectively this book had a lot of foul language which felt like a bit more overpowering, and that's one of the main reasons why I didn't like this one. Also, I have a physical book copy of this book, but I don't know where I kept it, because I didn't want it to occupy space in my shelf, so it's boxed up somewhere in my house. It will be safe. I do have a physical copy of this one, but I was not able to find it. The next one is a classic, and it is Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Now, this book is about a man who wakes up and finds himself to be turned out into be an insect, I think in specific to be a beetle, and how he tries to understand certain privileges and things that he had as a human being, and how he resents for having taken them for granted while he is in this form. There's also a lot of differences in the way that he is treated by his family after his transformation. It is it is a sad book. I thought that it will be very interesting in many ways, because a human being who was turned into an insect, and a human feeling human inside the body of an insect. I went with such thoughts into this one, but it was a lot more depressing if you ask me. One of the worst things which I did was that I read this way back in January, okay, not even February. I read this in January, and it was very depressing. To read such a depressing story on the first year of the month, it was not that much motivating, yet I powered through and read other books as well. So yeah, that's one of the main reasons why this was a disappointment for me. But I do think that when I'm in the right place in my mind, I will reread this book and I'll try to understand what the author is trying to say, because it did feel like very much worth the time for the small length that the book is. And I'm going to definitely try this once again, but I just don't know when. The next one I'm sure is going to make a lot of you viewers and subscribers and just readers in general going to be very mad at me, because it's such a very famous book, and it is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. One of the best things which I knew about this book was that it was very philosophical, and it has the tendency to change any person's life who reads it. And I went in with those expectations. It was very philosophical, believe me, okay. Trust me, I did understand all those things. But one thing which I think as a mistake from my side on reading this book was that I listened to it on audio. I didn't read it as a physical book, and I tend to be a reader who grasps things and stores them in my mind, and I'm able to feel things when I read them physically rather than just listen to them. I didn't read this physically, I listened to it on audio. And while my brother saw this book when I showed him the disappointing reads of mine in 2020, he just asked me a question, why is The Alchemist there in this list? It was not even like a question, it was like a threat. Why is The Alchemist there in this list? Because it's one of his favorite books of all time, if I'm not wrong. And I was like very much let down by it, and I didn't think that I would consider it as a disappointment, but it did live to be a disappointment for me in 2020. I'm sure that I will reread this also sometime in the future, very near itself. I'll try to buy the physical book and read it physically and review it if possible also. I don't want to be a person who wants to hate such a good book. I'm sure that if many people like this, there must be something good and genuinely fulfilling about this book, which makes many people like it. And I don't want to be a person who just wants to throw hate on something that everyone loves. And I'm going to try reading this, but as of now in 2020 this was a disappointing book for me. The next one in the list is The Girl Who Played with Fire by Stieg Larsson. This is the second book in the Millennium Trilogy by Stieg Larsson. I read the first book, which is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I have reviews for this one as well as the previous book in my channel already. You can check it out if you are interested. I liked and loved the first book a lot, because I didn't expect it to be that great, because it was so awesome. It's an adult thriller, crime mystery thriller, and it was just awesome. I just loved the entire experience of reading that book. The build-up was extreme, and the execution of all the things that the author did in that plot, it was so amazing. Also the characters, okay, I just liked the main character a lot. She's not a good person, but she's just fleshed out in the best way. Lisbeth Salander, who's the girl with the dragon tattoo. We just get a lot more of character growth of Lisbeth Salander in the second book. It was really good, okay. Considering Lisbeth as a character and her backstory, this was a really good book. But is it a really good crime thriller book that it's supposed to be for that first book which it had in the series? It was not such a promising sequel, if you ask me, and that's one of the main reasons it was a disappointment. I will not say that this book was it let me down in many ways. The one thing which just bugged me a lot was the less importance that was given to the plot, and it didn't seem like it was as good as the first book. The first book just set up the bar so high, and this just didn't meet those expectations very well. It was a 4-star read for me, yet it was quite a bit disappointing due to the fact that the plot was a bit weak. The next one is Arch Enemies by Marissa Meyer. This is the sequel to Renegades by Marissa Meyer, which is the first book in the Renegades trilogy. If you didn't know, Renegades was my most favorite book, which I read in 2018, and almost after 2 years having finished Renegades, I picked this one up and read it in October or November. I don't remember when, but I read it in one of those 2 months, and it was really good. One of the things which I faced a lot with this one was the pacing issue, because Renegades was such a fast-paced book, okay. It is over 500 pages long, yet it doesn't feel slow at all. It just keeps on moving. That's one of the main reasons why I just loved that book in 2018, and that was the main reason why I didn't like this one in 2020, because the pace just dropped at various instances throughout the story, because the romance needed to be built up and some of the relationships between the characters needed to be established, and I just didn't like that much. I do like the characters. One of the main reasons why I continued reading this series is this world, okay. It is really cool. It is urban sci-fi if you ask me, and it deals with human beings having superpowers. Hence, there's this huge difference of people who use their power for the good and people who use their power for the bad. The people who use their power for the good, as they say, form the government, and they are called the renegades. And the people who don't accept to it yet have superpowers, they are called the anarchists, who are like the anti-heroes. I'll not say that they are the villains, they are just the anti-heroes. And it was really fun reading the first book, but the second book just dropped the pace that the first book delivered to me because of the romance and the relationships that needed to be developed like very forcefully while handling such complicated plot. The next one in this list is a non-fiction book, and it's the only non-fiction book which disappointed me the most. Okay, that's the only reason I've included only this one despite all the non-fiction books which I read, and it is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F by Mark Manson. Okay, I think this is genuinely the worst self-help book or non-fiction book that I've read this year. I also know that many people like this one. One of the main reasons, just as I said before, that I didn't like this book is the foul language that it had. Okay, I'm a person who reads self-help books and non-fiction books in general in order to get positivity, okay, in order to get motivation and get inspired. And cussing bad words and just describing people by their body parts, that doesn't work out for me at all in any way, in any form of medium. And this book just did all of those things in a grotesque, gross way, if you ask me. That's one of the main reasons why I didn't like this. Also, if you're a person who does want to read a book which sounds good, which has a really catchy title like this one, I'm not saying anything bad about the title of this book. Such a great title, okay? But the content inside the book, it's not that much worth it. It's not worth the hype. I just truly and completely believe that. I also have a review on this one in which I talk about the pros and cons of this book. I'll try to link it down in the description so you can check it out if you're interested. I'm just not going to talk about all the bad things about this book. I've talked about the things which I liked as well as the things which I did not like in that one. Also, I have 2 other recommendations in that video if you did or did not end up liking this one. One of those books is Unif Yourself. I'll try to drop the image here, and the other one, I don't remember the name. You should check that video if you're interested, because those 2 books had a lot more to give to a reader rather than this book ever could, and that's one of the main reasons why this was a huge disappointment for me. The last book in this video is The White Tiger by Aravind Adiga. This was my first buddy read from the channel, and it ended up being a disappointing read for me. Okay, I'm not saying that it's a bad book in any way. It is a good book, and it doesn't fit into any of the other categories that I've said before. One of the things which I felt in this one was that I thought that this was going to be an inspiring book, a motivating book, because the blurb says that it is about an entrepreneur, blah blah blah. But trust me, this is not about an entrepreneur who might like motivate or inspire anyone. It's just about the life of a person who struggled a lot in his life, and he made a decision. Whether it's good or bad, it's totally subjective. You'll have to decide it for yourself, and I don't think that people get to judge you to be good or bad for the decision that you make about this person. And it was really subjective in many ways. It is a book which can be used for a lot of discussions. I think that's one of the main reasons why I selected for the buddy during that month. And I did like the book, but it did not deserve the hype, if you ask me personally. One of the main reasons why I read it was this. See, The Man Booker Prize of 2008. I read Life of Pi like 1 or 2 months before reading, 2 or 3 months before reading this one, and I just liked the entire experience of reading that one. It was such a different story, such a different setting, wonderful writing, everything was great. But I went in with such expectations in this one, but I knew that this was a literary fiction, so it is going to be even more real rather than Life of Pi. But one of the main reasons I didn't like it was the marketing that was done to this book. That is, it was the story of an entrepreneur. I think it's the story of an entrepreneur, not the story of an entrepreneur, if you ask me. And it didn't motivate me in any way. I also have a review for this one, in which I talk about my views. It's spoiler free, so if you're interested, you can go and check it out. I'll link that also down in the description. Yeah, those were all my disappointing reads of 2020, and do let me know your disappointing reads of 2020 in the comments below. And if you do have any objections, or if you are with me in any of those books, any of these books that I've talked about in this video, do let me know that also in the comments below. I'd like to know them. And that's it for today. If you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel, because I publish new videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.